Hi, my name's Adam Gibbons. I work for Visual Education as a Microsoft Certified Trainer. So hello, really nice to meet you this afternoon. Today what I'm going to be doing is a taster session or training session rather on Microsoft Azure and cloud computing. So I'm just going to be covering some of the basics of cloud computing and a little and showing you a demonstration on Microsoft's cloud platform for this. So just as an introductory, okay, we don't usually do the course the same way. We don't usually do the course this way. What we do is we usually do a much more interactive course, but just because this is a taster session, we are going to just be doing a bit of a live demonstration for the hour. So we're going to be looking at some learning objectives around what Azure is, what cloud computing is, and what Microsoft Azure is used for. So I'm just going to switch screen to a second, and I'm going to just show the Azure portal. So the Azure portal is essentially Microsoft's cloud computing platform for Microsoft. Sorry, the Azure portal is the cloud computing platform for Microsoft. What you can do here is you can essentially deploy different things such as servers. You can set up whatever you like, sort of an IT infrastructure within Microsoft Azure. You're probably wondering what the term cloud computing means. Just to give you an overview, cloud computing is it's a term for deploying basically IT infrastructure equipment in the cloud. What that means is Microsoft essentially just use a system of data centers all around the world. For example, they have data centers in a number of different countries, such as the United Kingdom, America, Western Europe, etc. And when you use Azure, the Azure portal with cloud computing, you simply just use one of these data centers to set up your own IT infrastructure. I'm just going to put something into the chat which will give you Microsoft's explanation of cloud computing, which I will just share my screen. And essentially what this will do is it will show just basically a beginner's guide on cloud computing. So just want to show this before I go into Microsoft Azure. And essentially what it does is, as it says, simply put, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services, including servers, storage, databases, networking software, analytics, and intelligence. But instead of being at your local workplace or in your local on-premise IT infrastructure, it instead runs completely in the Microsoft Cloud platform known as Azure. So, brilliant system. I'm just going to show you a couple of the benefits just before I go into the interactive demonstration. The idea is that with Azure, you can sometimes save on cost. For example, when you're using a cloud-based data center, you don't have to think about power or electricity costs. You don't have to think about, or you don't usually have to think about things such as hardware failure. You're not responsible for maintaining hardware. In some instances, depending on what the product you're selecting, you're not even responsible for maintaining operating systems. Other benefits as well is they'll offer redundancy. For example, if you're using an on-premise IT infrastructure and that goes down due to internet connectivity issues, then that won't affect Azure because it's a separate system. And there are lots of other little programs within Microsoft Azure as well. So I've just put this in the chat for you to have a read if you do want to and make a note of some brilliant aspects. Security is also a really important thing in Azure because Microsoft spent quite a lot of money last year in terms of maintaining security. So they take security quite seriously, and you're not fully responsible for maintaining the physical security anymore, because it's completely cloud-based. You still do have to do security elements when maintaining servers in the cloud, but we won't come into that in this taster. And this is just a bit of an introductory sort of article from Microsoft explaining what cloud computing is. So again, if you think of cloud computing, it's just using IT equipment, but in a remote location somewhere. So in a data center somewhere, and this can be anywhere around the world. So I just thought I would show that, as it gives a nice introduction to cloud computing. What I'm going to do now is, before I go into the Azure portal, I'm just going to show this. So there's another article I just want to give you a bit of a pre sort of link on, and that is the Azure overview. So Microsoft Azure is Microsoft's cloud computing platform, and essentially what you've got is, when you log into it, you have an Azure portal, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. Again, just another Microsoft official link here, which shows you what you can do with the Azure portal. It shows you some of the features. For example, there's this great thing where you can click explain the foundations of Azure. And there's been a lot around COVID-19 with Azure at the moment. And again, you can store things in it. You can operate a hybrid cloud. There's just lots of brilliant features from using Microsoft's cloud platform, including things such as AI, programming. You could list it for absolutely hours. And I just thought I'd show this as a nice introductory piece of content and show what you can do with it. The only last thing before I do dive straight into the Azure portal I want to show is also this. So what I'm going to do is just an Azure portal overview. So what this does is, this is Microsoft's official link. So if you ever want to try Azure yourself, what you can do is you can look at this, and it just gives you an idea of what it is. So as it says, web-based console that allows you to manage Azure resources, so cloud-based resources. Obviously, hints that it's used in the data center, because it is. And there's a bit of a nice explanation further down in the sort of describing the Azure portal menu. So just some tips and tricks when you come to use it, and when I come to show you in a moment. But essentially what you can do is you can view the menu and you can create resources. You can customize how your home looks. You can adjust your default views. There's lots of little settings which are way too detailed for this course, but again, it gives you a nice sort of annotated structure of the Azure portal and what it looks like. So you can see on the left, you've got a number of different resources, such as your networking, disk size, security, lots of little things there that you could spend absolutely weeks learning about. As I say, the Azure portal, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch to the Azure portal here, which is here. So I've got my own Azure subscription. Just to say, if you do want to try Azure for yourself, you can try it completely free. All you have to do is create a free Microsoft Outlook.com account. So that can be, you can make it up whatever you like. You can put like adam123@outlook.com. And then once you've done that, if you go to portal.azure.com, you'll be able to sign in with that account. And what you'll need to do is create a subscription. So the way this basically works is when you set up a subscription, that is your payment method for Azure. So Azure works on a pay-as-you-go basis. And basically you can sign up for the default free MSDN subscription. You do have to put in your debit card details when you do it, because it's used just for authentication purposes, and it'll charge you usually a penny. And what you'll be able to do from that is essentially you'll have access for 30 days to £150 worth of free Azure credit, and you can basically do what you like. You can create servers, you can deploy a web app. There's a couple of minor restrictions, but again, you can do what you like. And the cool thing about it is you'll never be charged unless you manually upgrade your subscription. And if you decide you run out of free credit and you want to continue working with the resources you've created, you can either A, upgrade your subscription, or B, you can just go ahead and create another account, which I've done many times. So this is the Azure portal. I'm going to be using my paid subscription domain account, Adam@AG Learning today. So this just gives you a sort of overview. I'm on the home page. So this is everything I've been messing around with recently. As you can see, I've got a number of different resources up here. One of the most common things you can look at is with the dashboard. So the dashboard, what that does is it basically allows you to view different things. It's a bit like, the best way I would describe it personally is it reminds me a bit of the Windows 10 start menu, really. You can add tiles to it, you can customize them, you know, you can add like a clock, which I've done there. Again, this is just a test account. And you can do lots of different things there. Like the reason these are displaying as little drop icons is because they're deleted resources, but again, you can add whatever you like. For example, I've called it a Adam Gibbons dashboard 1. You can, for example, click edit. You can customize the background, you can delete things. You can really customize it to how you want it to display. So for example, if I look here, I can add something. I'm thinking I could add a video, or I could add a clock, I could add a metrics chart. You know, you can choose whatever you want to. In fact, I can put that up there, just customize it. I can add a metrics chart. Now, I would have to go into metrics to edit that, but essentially what you can do lots of different things. Like I've done like a cost consumption here, and you can see lots of different things. And it's just basically a way to customize how you want to do it. You can do a brand new dashboard. So for example, the way you might use this in real practice would be, let's say if you set up some servers in Azure and you have some Active Directory servers and you have some file servers, you could put all of the Active Directory servers on one dashboard and all of the file servers on a secondary dashboard. And it's just organizing it as to how you would prefer to see it. I'm going to go ahead and create this. Azure NXT. And what I can do is I can see that, I can add whatever I want to do. I can add a clock, I can add all resources. What this will do is it will add resources I've currently got in my Azure tenant. And basically I'll just display a list like that. And it's just different things you can do really. You can resize. So if I go to customize, I can make it really small, for example. Or I can make it massive. And again, it's just really personalizing it how you want to do so. You can spend a lot of time on this. There are people that spend significant amounts of time on really personalizing a dashboard to them. But I'm not going to go through that as it's just a taster session. But essentially, this is some of the things you can do. If you have a look online, there is an Azure dashboard overview. And what you can do with that from here is basically it will just give you a guide on how to customize this to how you want to display it. There's lots of other settings as well, which I won't go into, but you can have things like auto refresh. So let's say you've got a server on here and you're displaying a server, it will update every hour with the status of that server and show if it's online, offline, whatever you want to pick. As I say, you can share this with other people, you can download it, you can keep copies of it, lots of different settings that you can view. You'll notice as well that it's a private dashboard. That means that because it's a private dashboard, the way that it's set up here means that in this organization that I own, essentially no other users within that domain will be able to use it. So you can create what's called private and public dashboards for different people to view. One of the other things I'm now going to go on to is just looking at the left. So we've got just at the top here, we've got all services, we've got dashboard that we're currently on. We've got the home page, which takes you back to all of these Azure services. And we've got create a resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click at the top here and create a resource. So this allows you to create a simple resource within Azure that you can control. What I'm going to do now is you'll see here there's a couple of popular ones. The cool thing with Azure as well is they do provide a number of sort of tutorials with this. So you get you know, that Microsoft are doing a lot on things like Microsoft Learn now, and our professional Microsoft Learn to basically give tutorials on how to basically use these. What I'm going to do for this is I'm going to go ahead and pick a Windows Server data center. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a virtual machine with Windows Server. If you're not familiar with virtual machine technology, basically the way to view a virtual machine is it's like a computer running within a computer. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to create a computer that is running within one of Microsoft's data centers. So there's absolutely loads of data centers around the world. In fact, you can view these if you go on the Azure regions map. And if you look, there's some really cool stuff on Google Images, but you can see here that these are all of the data centers around the world. And I can pick, technically not all, but the majority of these to set up my virtual machine in. So this is just going to be a server. I've got my subscription here. My subscription is basically my payment method for the for Azure. I'm going to just leave that on that for now because this won't cost me too much. You've got a resource group. So a resource group will basically group all your resources together. Now, before I go any further, if you do ever do this in practice, there is a tool online called the Azure Pricing Calculator. So Azure, just as a reminder, does work on a pay-as-you-go method. You only pay for what you use. It's not subscription usually or anything like that. It's completely pay-as-you-go. And with the pricing calculator, what you can do is you can basically use it as a calculator to calculate how much things are going to cost you. For example, you'll see virtual machines here. I'm going to click View, and I can configure a number of things. I'm just going to switch it to pounds down here. If I just do that, there we go. And down here you can see I've got virtual machines. I can select my region. So this is basically the data center that I'm specifying. I could go with Australia or Brazil or anywhere. You do have to be careful a little bit with this if you actually use it in practice, just because some data centers do offer features with Microsoft Azure that others do not. I'm not going to go into that today, but if you have a research online, Microsoft does publish all of that information. So I could go, for example, Brazil South. I'm going to use a Windows operating system. Tier, I'll be able to configure this in a moment when I show you, but low priority is basically faulty hardware. Standard is as it sounds, and basic is some of the most basic computing. So standard is usually the default for the most. And you can see here, I can pick what's known as an instance size. So for example, D1, V2, I get one CPU, 3.5 gigabytes of RAM, and that's going to cost me 9.84 pence an hour. If I was to run it indefinitely, it would cost me £71.82 per month. But again, if you remember to shut it down, then you will save costs. And that's why Azure is an only pay-as-you-go method. You've also got here where you can reserve, and there's a number of other costs and things like that that I won't get into, such as hard disk costs that are little in pence. But I just thought I'd show you that tool. So if you are ever planning a production Azure environment, you can look at that. I'm going to now go back to the Azure portal, and I'm going to do this. So firstly, I have to create a resource group. I'm just going to pick something dead simple, like I can use Visual NXT as a name. And basically all this does is it just groups all of my Azure resources together. So you think I'm setting up a server in one of Microsoft's data centers. I'm going to need a network adapter. I'm going to need a hard disk. I'm going to need CPUs. I'm going to need several other resources. And this just groups them all together into, as it sounds, a resource group. The benefit of that is after this session, to stop me incurring additional costs, I can then go ahead and just delete the resource group. I'm then going to call it VM1. I can then pick a region. So this is basically the data center as I showed before. I could pick Korea, Japan, Switzerland, Norway. I could pick it wherever I want really. The only thing you have to be considerate about with this is the fact that some data centers comply with things like GDPR when others don't. And if you select a data center that's really far away, such as Visual NXT, then you have to think of things like latency issues. I'm just going to go for UK, if I go UK South, which is London. Infrastructure redundancy, I'm not going to get into that today, but basically you can do things such as provide redundancy for your Azure servers. So if things like power loss occurs in the data center, or you're in an area where an earthquake might happen, for example, they can provide redundancy. I can select the image. I'm going to go with Windows Server 2019. There's Azure Spot Instance, not going to go into that too much, but essentially what that does is, as it says here, it offers unused capacity at a discounted rate. And what I can do here is I can select my instance size. I'm just going to put a username. And I can do that. Again, there are lots of other specific settings which I'm not going to go into because we'll be here for absolutely hours. The only one I am going to just toggle on quickly is automatic shutdown, which will automatically shut down my virtual machine today at 3 p.m. And you just click review, and what it will do is it will review and create that server. So it will check that it meets all of the requirements, and it will basically review that it's ready to create. So just give it a second. Usually it's not this slow, I do apologize. But basically what it will do, it will review and create it basically will give me an output on the virtual machine. So it will give me an output with the image type, so the operating system. It will give me an output with the specification, so the number of virtual CPUs, the disk options I've configured, the networking virtual networks I've configured. I do apologise if it is being a bit slow, but basically what I would need, I've just refreshed that, so that should come back. I'll recreate that. But basically what it will do is it will give you a output essentially to deploy the server, and it will tell you how much it's going to cost you, how much it's going to basically how much it's going to cost you, what resources it's going to use, and things like that. There's also this option as well here called start with a preset configuration. This is really cool because if you just want to deploy servers quickly, get them up and running, and don't really want to spend the time with doing it, you can basically just use a template. And it's really cool. It gives you just a few options to customize. And if I just create that, it allows you to basically specify a virtual machine. So really cool, and you can go ahead. Sorry, that is just taking so long. But I'll come back to that and I'll redeploy it the other way. Just give me a moment. I'm just redeploying the virtual machine. And basically this will allow me to select the size. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick that one. View and create. There we go, it's actually doing it now. So you'll see there is validation passed. That's going to cost me 4.1 pence per hour, and you can see here it gives me an output. So username Adam. I don't have a Windows license. So the cool thing about this is if you were setting servers up at your workplace, you would have to license them with 2019 and pay potentially a few £1,000s, which is quite costly. With this, you don't have to because it's included in the pay-as-you-go method. So completely paid for, don't have to worry about that. You'll see my networking, you'll see my hard drive options, you'll see lots of different things like that. And you just go ahead and click create. And that'll take, from experience, about 5 to 10 minutes to deploy. So while that's deploying, I'm going to go back to the Azure portal and leave that for a moment and basically show you around some of the other features of Microsoft Azure. So you'll see up here there are a number of different things such as resource groups, you've got cost management, you've got virtual machines and things like that. If you click this here, what it will do is it will show you all of the different features within your Azure subscription. There's also some cool things as well, as you'll see here, free training from Microsoft and other things around the Quick Start Center, free offerings, and basically what you can do. You can filter it down and just press all and view everything, and you'll see the list is absolutely huge. Like, you've got your general resources, you've got your options for computing, known as Compute in Azure. You've got your options for networking, so lots of different things here. And there's just absolutely loads. You could spend absolute weeks learning this. And you can see here, for example, I could set up things like Azure Active Directory. I could set up things such as Intune for managing devices. Again, there's just lots of different things. I'm just going to talk you through a few of these just whilst that deploys. But essentially, you've got your common things here, such as cost management and billing subscriptions. If you have a look at that, basically what it will do is it will show your subscription. So this, if you decide to sign up for free, this will be called the Azure free trial by default. And what it will do is it will show a number of different things, including your role. What this is telling me at the top right is my deployment succeeded. Create VM Windows Server 2019. It's gone through to the resource group and it was successful. You'll notice the cool thing up here is I can pin it to my dashboard. And basically what I can do is I can then click save, and if you scroll down, you'll see further down here I can see my virtual machine, my server is running, and I can move that up. Actually, if I click edit, I can move that up here. So I can, let's say I want to view it at the top. I can edit its size. You can do lots of different things. And you can remove it, refresh, you go to the resource, lots of different things like that, and click save. Now, if I go to the left, what I'll see here is back into virtual machines. I may need to go to, let me just check. Yeah, I may need to go to home. Sorry, and virtual machines will display here. And these are the virtual machines that I own within this subscription. So that's succeeded successfully and pinned to the dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss all. It does record it to an activity log, but basically dismiss all. And now this is running. If I go to VM1, what I can do is in the overview, I'll see a list of specifications. So this is a server that I've quickly set up in Azure. So this could be a production server that's running Active Directory for my workplace. It could be used alongside programs such as Microsoft 365. It can pretty much do whatever you want it to do, and it's completely up to you what you want to do with it. You'll see here, so UK West, that's the data center I picked. UK West is Cardiff. You have UK West, which is Cardiff, and UK South, which is London. Just a top tip and trick I found, the UK data centers are a little bit costly compared to some of the others. America's got some very cheap ones. But basically this is just an overview of my server. I can see my instance size. I've got my public IP address for connections. Not going to go into this into a massive amount of detail, but again, you can see all of my different options. So what I can then do is, let's say I want to connect. I can simply do a remote desktop connection. There's a couple of different ways of connecting to your Azure resources. You've got RDP, SSH, and Bastion. Bastion is a command line code, which I'm not going to go into, and SSL is basically a secured version of PowerShell. I'm going to use RDP for today. And basically what you get is you get this option to download the RDP file, which I can then click connect, and I can click more. I'm just going to more choices because what will happen here is, because my Ritual account is adamg@ritual.com, which is a domain account. Don't want to log in with that. I want to use my own local administrative account on the server. So to do that, I'm going to type // and I'm going to put Adam, just put in my password. And you'll see that it will basically connect to the server. And basically I can just manage the server as if I was actually using it in my workplace. It may be just a little bit slow to come up because it's first time setup. And there's just lots of cool things you can do with it. You could deploy your own IT infrastructure in Azure. You could store files on this. There's lots of different things that you can effectively do with it. Just while that's loading up for a second, what I'm going to do is, as loaded up, okay, it's beating me to it. It'll load up with Server Manager because this is a server, which will allow me to install roles. So that could be Active Directory, that could be DNS, whatever you name it. You can do what you want to do. Now, one really cool thing with Azure that I think actually Azure does better than an on-premise IT workplace infrastructure is you think you might have servers at a workplace and at some point in their life they start to get old. Operating system updates, time passes, and the performance of them isn't particularly great. You might have issues such as high demand from more users in your organization, causing things like high CPU usage, running out of disk space, lots of little problems that you can typically occur in an on-premise IT environment. And the problem with that is you sort of hit a bottleneck at some point where you basically can't upgrade the resources anymore, and you would then instead have to spend tens of thousands of pounds upgrading the infrastructure. What you can do instead with Azure, so a benefit of Azure which it can offer over this, is you can use what's called a scalability along with Azure Autoscale. So basically what you can do here is you'll notice size, and this is the size of the VM. So at the moment, Azure, they're referred to as instances, and basically with I'm on a B2S instance, which gives, didn't mean to do that, sorry. That gives me 2 CPUs, 4 GB of RAM, 4 data disks, and it's costing me about £30 a month. Obviously, that's only if I run it indefinitely, but I'll of course be deleting the resource group by the end of today. So it's up and running. So basically, you can see here, or just get the wrong thing. It's up and running. I can do whatever I like on it. I could add some roles and features. This is running completely in the Cardiff data centre, so hundreds of miles away from where I currently am, near Birmingham. And I can do what I like, really. I can install server roles. I can add files to the hard disk. It's just a simple server, a simple blank server, really. You can see I've got C drive, got temporary storage, lots of things like that, and you can just customize it how you want, really. So let's say, for example, common IT problem, I look at Task Manager and I see that the server's running really slow. So performance issues are something that every IT department eventually will encounter. At the moment, this server is quite healthy, but let's say that my CPU usage or disk usage was high, or I had a problem where the C drive was running out of space and I would need to expand this. Whilst you might be able to possibly do that at a workplace, again, it's costly and at times you won't be able to do it. With Azure, you can basically do it as much as you want. You continue expanding as much as you want. And I'm going to actually show you this. If I click this, disconnect, and I go to the size, what I'll need to do first is shut down the virtual machine. Now, I'm going to give you a top tip with this. When you shut down a server in Azure, you should always deallocate it. Never stop it within the operating system. And the reason for this is the fact that if you stop it from within the operating system, Microsoft still sometimes thinks it has a state of running when it doesn't, and you still may be charged. Very important in a paid subscription. You should always stop it from the Azure portal, and you should always restart it from the Azure portal as well, which is what I'm going to do. Not sure what your knowledge with networking is, but what this will do is it will basically get rid of my public IP address, which is dynamic, and it will deallocate it. If you are using a server frequently, you can pay for a dedicated public IP address, but I'm not going to do that today. So just give that a second to shut down. And this is just one of the cool things you can do. Again, I have sort of zeroed on virtual machines. There are lots of other things you can do, For example, if I go into monitor here, this will show the status of my basically environment. I can go to alerts, and you can configure different things like alerts. Like I've got a couple of cost-based alerts, which tells me how much this is going to cost me. So for example, I've got an alert which tells me when the budget goes so high, so you can set a fixed amount every month, and Azure will complete an action such as emailing you or shutting down all services when your cost budget is met. You can do lots of different things here, which I'm not going to go too in depth with, but you can see things like metrics, and you can create your own charts and things like that, which is quite cool. So lots of different things there. So I'm just going to go back to my virtual machine, and as I said, we're in the scenario where we've thought, okay, we're running out of resources, so we need a more powerful server to do what this is doing. Because this server, like you could think of it, I'm running out of disk space. So let's give it an additional disk. So what we can do is we can create and attach our new hard drive. And what we can do is we can specify a number of different things. You could call it AG Drive 2. You've got your storage type. Now, basically what this will do, I would recommend if you ever do this in production, having a look at research the few differences. Basically, standard hard drive, mechanical drive, SSD, solid state drive. You've got premium SSD, which is a lot faster, but obviously will cost you more per utilization. I can then set the size. So let's say I just need to give it an extra 64 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes, I can do. You'll see you'll specify your encryption, and basically I will leave that as it is. And then all you have to do is simply click save, and it will create that disk and it will attach it to the drive. So lots of cool things you can do. You can expand additional disks or current disks as well. But again, it just gives you the cool thing that how easy was that to quickly add storage to a server. It took me 3 seconds, and all I had to do was add that. And then if I start it again, when I go into disk management, I'll be able to see the additional drive. So you think when you're doing it at a workplace, you've got to switch the server off. You've probably got to take some kind of server cover off or something like that. You've got to buy the correct physical drive. You've got to install it. That would definitely take longer than 3 seconds like I've done. And if I go back into it, I'll be able to see the additional drive I've created, which just give it a second to come up actually. Connect. Just give it a second, it will take a moment. Sometimes you do have to wait after start and just for it to basically get up to speed. Sometimes it takes a minute or two. I'll just give it that moment. There we go. It's come up now. It's a login screen. So again, /Azure. To see that very quickly I've been able to add a physical disk drive to the server. So really quick, just give it a second. There we go. And if I go to File Explorer, you'll see that in this PC, I may have to just initialize the disk, which I will do quickly. And basically what I can do is there we go, disk 2. So that's the new disk I've created in Azure. I've clicked OK. I'm just going to create a new simple volume. I'm just going to give it a load of default settings. It'll format it and wipe it, and then it'll make it available for general use. And you'll see now that that new 32 gigabyte volume that I've created in Azure is now appearing in File Explorer, and I could put my files on it. I could use it as expandable storage. You could give access to all users who are using this server. And again, all of the actions, that took me less than a couple of minutes to quickly add expendable storage. Likewise, let's say you no longer need this storage and it's incurring additional cost. Again, what you can do is you can shut down the server, and when you go back to it, you can basically delete the disks. So you imagine if you was to do that in a physical workplace, it would be to be honest, a lot more hassle. So that is just something you can do. I'll give that a moment and come back to it. Virtual machines is just one small part, one very tiny part of Azure. In fact, when I went to Microsoft's headquarters in Reading in the pre-COVID era, basically what I studied a course called Learn to Build a Company in Azure in a Day. And Microsoft said they are adding some sort of new feature every 36 hours to Microsoft Azure. So you can literally spend months and months learning Microsoft Azure. There is that much in it, but it's a really powerful portal. I'm just going to show you some of the other features as well. So for example, in here, you've got the Azure Advisor. This is really interesting because what it does is it automatically looks at your Azure-based environment and tells you what actions you can complete to make it run better. So straight away, you can see that the security of my Azure environment is quite bad. However, I'm following a list of cost recommendations. This is particularly important because let's say you have a really powerful server in Azure, but you're not really using it that much. Azure will automatically detect and say, maybe you should downgrade it to save on cost. And it will do that. Again, something that you can't do really to a physical server within an on-premise workplace. You'll see here that the security of my infrastructure is really bad, but it's great that Azure will tell me that. And what I can do is I can click within that, and I've got 11 high impact security mitigations. I've got 6 medium impact, and I've got 3 low impact. Straight away at the top of this list, it's telling me to enable multi-factor authentication. If you haven't used that before, multi-factor authentication is where you use two or more, we use more than 2 methods of authentication to log into a system. This could be a username, password, and something like a one-time passcode, or some other sort of authentication, such as a text to your mobile phone, call to your mobile phone, or you know, some other form of secret passcode. Again, I'm not going to go into all of these, but you can see here, like with my virtual machines I'm created, again, an example of poor IT security practice. You can see here that I have got all of my networking ports open. But again, what's really cool about this is Azure is automatically detecting this and telling me about it. And if I was an IT professional, I could look at this and think, okay, this needs resolving, and you can plan and sort it. I just haven't done it, to be honest. And basically, you can see here, just going back into the Azure Advisor, you can see there's lots of other things about reliability, performance. You can download the recommendations as an exportable file. But it's just really cool what you can do, to be honest, because you can think, you know, you've got servers at work, you would have to set up some other form of monitoring solution, like System Center Operations Manager, for example, to monitor these servers. With this, it's all monitored automatically, so you don't really have to set anything up. You can do lots of different things here. You can drill down into these, you can look at cost, but I'm following all of them, so not needed. I will show you what it looks like if I go into cost recommendations, and Microsoft do include this thing or guide on reducing costs in Azure, which I will just paste into the chat. And basically the idea of this is to keep the cost of your Azure subscription down. Not going to go into that too much. I've just posted it in there in case you do want to have a look at it. But again, you can do things like that. One of the other really cool things about Azure I'm going to demonstrate as well is things such as Azure Autoscale and Azure Dev Test Labs. So if I go back to home, I'm going to then go to create a resource, and I'm going to go to Azure Autoscale. Search it. I have to enable it. Just give it a second. Just have to search it. Sometimes it doesn't come up. If not, I may have to enable it, which I'll come back to. But basically, you can have a function called Autoscale, and you can also have Dev Test Labs as well. If I just search. There we go. So Dev Test Labs is another one as well. So the idea with Dev Test Labs is basically what you can do is you can create a lab, if you will, for a number of users to access. So let's say, for example, you have a group of 10 people and you are basically, they could be doing anything. They could be doing programming to develop a new program for a company or a customer, client. They could be doing it just for self-learning and personal development. They could be doing it just to have a little look around. Really, there's a massive list of things I won't go into. What you can do with this is deploy a set of virtual machines, and what you can do is within the Azure portal, you can control using what's known as role-based access, where you tightly control a user's permissions, and you can have each user claim their own virtual machine to do what they like with it. It's particularly good if you're introducing end users to virtual machine technology, as well as giving access to development teams and things like that. And basically, it's very similar to creating a normal virtual machine, where you can pick a subscription, you can pick a resource group. I could go ahead and use the existing one, which is the VM group. I can create a name, so call it Adam's Test Lab. Oh, I can't put spaces in the name. Let me just. And basically, I can then go next, auto shutdown. Again, I'm going to put 3 o'clock. Time zone, you just see. And again, you can go through all the different sets, and you can see all of the different things. I'm just going to go ahead. I mean to click that. Sorry. The cool thing, sorry, with this actually, I will show. Just gone. Is there was a setting I just accidentally clicked as well called download a template for automation. So the cool thing with Azure is, let's say, let's go back to dev test again. The cool thing with Azure is when you create a resource, could be server, virtual machine, could be dev test labs, whatever you want to pick, you can download a template for automation. And the cool thing with this is basically you never have to edit any of these things again. So I'll just go lab. Environments, that's fine. Public environments basically just creates a series of templates. Just go ahead and review and create. And again, what it will do is it will create me a lab basically that I can deploy virtual machines in. I'll go and click create. And basically what it will do is it will go ahead and create a lab, and I can then add virtual machines to that. There is, as I say, if I go to auto scale, I just want to show auto. But basically you can do things, you can do lots of different things like that, where you can basically deploy VMs and set them up as servers. You've also got things such as, you can see we've just got almost 10 minutes left. You can also see things like, if I just go into more services, I can browse here, like I can look at cost management and billing. So I can look at cost estimates for the month. I can look at preview features, and interesting because this will show you a list of preview features. One other thing I am just going to touch on why that's doing that as well is the Microsoft 365 roadmap. So the Microsoft 365 roadmap, you can simply search it online, and if you are using Azure in a day-to-day basis, you can see the number of features that come into it in the future. So Microsoft, what they do is they publish new features on this dashboard. You can scroll down, you can go to products, and you can filter it just for Azure related resources. So for example, Azure Active Directory and things like that. And you'll see here basically Microsoft have put in a release date, so November 2020, June 2020, March 2019. But again, when they're doing these things, when they're publishing new features, you can see it within here, and you can see a feature ID, and it just gives you this update, which is nice. And you think, okay, we need to be aware of this. One other thing I am going to do as well, so you can see here there's a number of different preview features. Not going to go into that for now because we'll be here for absolute ages, but essentially I'm going to show Active Directory. So Azure Active Directory, if you haven't used it before, Active Directory or Microsoft Active Directory is like a massive phone book. You can think that Ritual, for example, uses Active Directory. Adam at ritual.com, that as a domain account resides in Active Directory, as does other members of this meeting like Molly and Jono. And basically it is like a massive phone book which a domain administrator can control. So they can disable accounts, enable accounts, they can do lots of different things like that. You'll see here that basically with Azure Active Directory, how it differs to conventional on-premise Active Directory is that it runs completely in the cloud. So another benefit of cloud computing. You can think of with Active Directory on your workplace, you can think of it that you have to maintain a physical server. You can instead run it completely in the cloud, or you can use what's called a hybrid cloud model, where you can use programs such as Azure AD Connect, sometimes referred to as DIRSing, to connect and copy a copy of your on-premise IT infrastructure to Azure and back. Excuse me, so it is just something you can do, and you can basically create users and you can control them, for example, or control what they do. For example, you can see here just a couple of, I've been messing around with a few groups recently in other commercial training we do, but you can see there's my account in here, Adam Gibbons. If I click within it, you'll see here that I can see my name, I can see my user principal name, so my login information that I've set up, my source in Azure AD. I've added my Ritual job title stuff to this, so very much to what actually is within Ritual, a professional environment. I've added a lot of this stuff, like I could add my manager, company name, things like that. I can choose whether I want to block sign in, and in an IT environment, you can just basically control your users to access this, and you can join your end computers, so your laptops being used by your end users, desktops, etc., to this and manage it completely from the cloud. You can do it alongside what's known as Microsoft Intune. You can just see we've got 7 minutes left. Intune, and basically Intune, if you do use it, it's used to be in Azure, but essentially it's a new cloud-based feature which has gone back to 365. And basically you would use Azure alongside this to essentially control devices. So you might use like what we're using on Ritual devices, like the company portal app, alongside other policies to basically manage devices remotely, such as pushing out updates, allowing end users to install apps without IT approval, lots of different things you can do. Obviously you'll see mine are not in compliance because I've deleted the devices. But again, you can set lots of different policies like that, and it's just some cool features of Azure. Going back to Azure Active Directory, I can view my users, I can delete users, I can stop them from signing in. For example, this is another sort of default user I've created. I could revoke their sessions, I can reset the password, I can edit their information. As I say, it's just like a big phone book. You can add contact information, you can do things like monitor consent and restrict what they can view. Again, you could spend absolutely weeks learning about this, but it's just one of the other really cool features about Microsoft Azure. You can do things like password reset, you can do user settings, you can view what groups are in. The other thing as well I would mention is if you do use Azure in production, there is what's called role-based access. So role-based access basically controls what a user can and cannot do in Azure. Because I'm the owner of this subscription and the owner of this tenant, I get global administrator plus a few other roles I've been able to add myself to because I have full ownership rights. But essentially, if you're creating other users, you can tightly control what you allow them to do. For example, here you could give them like help desk administrator. That might be good for like an IT apprentice in an IT department where you can basically they can reset passwords for end users. Again, there's an absolute massive list of what you can do. Like you've got Power BI, password administrators, there's absolutely loads. And again, it's just different things that you can do to customize your environment. I can see that we've got 5 minutes left, so basically what I will do is I will skip forward to basically just ask if there are any questions. So we've covered a bit about what Azure is, what you can do with it, and what cloud computing is. And I just wanted to see if there is any questions just for the last 5 minutes, if that's okay. Don't know if they come up. There's a few. Show Q&A. So Molly, can you see any questions?
No, we've got nothing in at the moment, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes to see if anybody does want to type something in, and then if not, we can wrap up. Of
course. As I say, if there is any questions about Azure in general, please do ask and I'll be happy to show you. But I just thought I'd go through some of the basic features.
We've not had anything through, Adam, so I'm happy for you to wrap up.
Okay. Well, it was nice meeting you all, and I will see you later.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.